Hi everyone, welcome. I imagine some people will be coming in as I'm starting to kick everything off, but I think we wanted to jump in because we've got a fun conversation today. We're so thrilled to be back again this year with our Crafted Future series. It's our event series that follows up on with some of our participants from our Crafted with Code experience in partnership with WP Engine. In this series, we talk about the big issues that agencies and brands are facing in the coming months. If we haven't met before, let me introduce myself. I'm Claire Graves. I've had the privilege of leading the Webby Awards team for about a decade now, and one of the joys of my job is meeting the people that make the internet all over the world and getting to talk to them about what's happening in the industry. So today we have an incredible panel of industry leaders who are going to talk about how the industry is changing and some of the creative ways their companies are evolving to meet this moment. And with that, I'm so excited to welcome our panel today. We have Lauren Diamond Kushner, who is the CEO of Kettle, which is a digital-first agency. Welcome, Lauren.
Thank you.
I also wanted to introduce Kwame Taylor Hayford, who is the co-founder of Kin, an impact innovation company.
Hey.
And then finally, Sachin Puri, who is the CMO of our partners at WP Engine, which is a WordPress technology platform. Hi, Sachin.
Hey there.
We thought that it would be a good idea for us to kind of kick off with you all introducing yourselves because, you know, as Emma likes to say, you'll do it better. But actually, I think it's also good for you to not have me speaking for the whole time. So why don't we do that? Kwame, why don't you kick us off?
Sure, I'm happy to. Kwame, co-founder at Kin. Like Claire said, we work at the intersection of innovation and impact for some really great brands like MailChimp, Delta Airlines, Uber, and fortunate to say the list goes on. But very excited to be here and yeah, looking forward to having a great conversation.
Lots of Webby winning projects. Also lots of Webby winning projects. Lauren, why don't you introduce yourself?
Thank you. Also very excited to be here. I'm Lauren Kushner. I'm the CEO of Kettle, a digital-first agency. We partner with clients like Apple and Nike and T-Mobile. We're part of the Code and Theory network. And yeah, excited to jump in and chat today.
Sachin.
Likewise, super excited to be here. I've been waiting for this conversation. It's going to be fun next couple minutes, and I'm looking forward to it. This is Sachin. I lead marketing at WP Engine. WP Engine is a WordPress technology platform, and we power the freedom to create for anything and everything the best of the world wants to accomplish when it comes to web technologies and web experiences. Particularly about me, I've been in sales and marketing for 20 years, more than 20 years. This is what I've done. I love marketing. My passion is in marketing, pretty much every aspect for it. I can talk about it whole day. Actually, I do. That's why I'm in marketing, but I'm excited to be here.
Good. We were just about to have a joyful hour then, Sachin.
Totally.
Well, thank you again, everyone, for joining us and for joining with WP Engine as well. To start, we wanted to set the scene. It's been a year and we're getting ready for another big one. There's been lots of shifts and changes over the year. You know, we are spending a lot of time talking about AI. There's been shifts in the economy, shifts in how media is working at the moment. So we wanted to talk to you all about how the industry has evolved over this past year. And I thought, Lauren, we could start with you.
Sure. Well, you said it. AI is definitely a top of mind for all of us. I think it's hard to not focus on it. The way I'm seeing things with AI, it's enabling us to do things we couldn't do before. It's allowing us to increase our efficiency. It's allowing us to be more innovative. So I think ultimately what it's going to bring to the industry and our clients is we can reduce costs and we can move faster and we can grow. So yeah, we're thinking about every day how we can do more for our partners using these technologies and in this space, and already doing a lot, whether it's personalization of assets or thinking about virtual assistants or how to automate things for the better. It's just a really exciting year, and I think year ahead to come.
Yeah, it's fun. Kwame, how about you? How have things been evolving for you all?
Quite well. I feel similar to Lauren, a lot of talk about AI and the benefits and perils of it sort of growing and evolving. But I think it comes down, in my opinion, to a lot of themes that we've seen, to be honest, over the last few years. A focus in a big way on purpose, a focus on what I would describe as sort of flexibility, but also on community. And I think the purpose thing to me is twofold. One is just how we as humans are seeking more meaning in the work that we do every day, and wanting to align ourselves with brands that kind of share those values and that share that same worldview. I think the flexibility point we were talking about a little bit earlier, people are really embracing this new reality that we're in around remote and flexible work. And I think return to the office is going to look a lot different in the future than it did in the past. And I think the last point to me is just, I think people still want a sense of community. They want a tribe to belong to, and they want that tribe to be more than, the few connections they have on social media. I think the return to sort of in person and being together and having experiences together, I feel is definitely something that will continue.
I love that. Sachin, how about you? What's changing with WP Engine, or what's changed this year?
Yeah, I think Kwame and Lauren have covered quite a lot. But broadly, I mean, AI is in full exploration. I mean, it's just there. I mean, there are researchers that are talking about that more than 40% of employees are actually exploring AI in one way or the other. And more than 70% are using it to assist versus completely redoing their entire job, which has been a question at the beginning of the year. Like, hey, is it AI versus me, or is it AI and me? And I think the jury is yet to be out, but mostly it is moving towards and versus or, which is great because that's additive, it's incremental, and it's going to help just across the base make us all very more comfortable. It does recollect me of about 15 years ago when we were talking about cloud computing, or maybe, give or take, and how that has evolved. And I think we will see AI just at the right time with infrastructure and the algorithms coming in is just perfectly right going into 2024. So that's one big trend just across the board. Second is, I think Kwame talked about that as well, is just, remote workers, like people to work from wherever, however they want to, and being productive and contributing to the overall ecosystem. It's a huge trend, and I'm sure if we'll get into it, but that's one area that WP Engine is a remote first company, and we adopted that strategy a couple of years ago, and it's working out really well. We have our own learnings and our challenges, but you learn from it, and we feel that we invest quite a lot from that culture standpoint. Third is all about personalized content. And what we have done is we have completely re-architected, rebranded, rewrote our entire site at wpengine.com. Do visit and check it out. It is built on a headless technology, which is actually future-proofing us of how do we use the powers of AIs and API-driven architecture, because we have done it in an API-first environment. And we'll talk more about that and how we are dovetailing content on that personalized piece. And the last piece is around trust. I think Kwame's one point was around the trust as well, about the community where you can trust people, you can gravitate towards some driven purpose. But trust is also in terms of you're going to be responsible in using my information as a company, from the consumer, from privacy standpoint, etc. So I would probably stop there in terms of the Uber trends, but I think there is a lot to look forward to in 2024 for all of us here.
Well, that's a good tee up for the next question. What is on the horizon for you all for 2024? What are you thinking about in terms of your brands and your clients, and how's your team prioritizing what's coming up in the new year? Kwame, why don't you kick us off on that one?
Big for us is talent and culture. How are we ensuring that we are nurturing the right space for creativity and for innovation? How are we bolstering and supporting the incredible team members that we have? And how are we investing in sort of continuous improvement in our understanding of the business that we're in, and be that conferences or workshops. And, Claire, we had an amazing session with you on a few weeks ago on just AI and how that's changing the landscape for us in sort of creative communication. So I think it's a really big piece. The second piece is we've seen a bit more of a swing back to brand and the understanding that, yes, growth and performance are key to driving commercial success today, but ultimately brand and people knowing and understanding what you stand for, what you believe in, and how you manifest that in the world is a priority. So we're seeing more than a few of our clients leaning more into creating these moments or opportunities for consumers to really connect with them beyond the products that they sell. So I think for us, that's hugely exciting because we're in the change business, as my co-founder and I like to describe ourselves. And change, is slow and takes time. And so you have to be very committed over a significant period of time to driving some of that evolution that we hope to see in humanity.
Interesting. It sounds like there's going to be some great work coming out in 2024 from Kin then. Sachin, why don't I hand it over to you on that one?
Yeah, I'm going to build on what I shared earlier and what Kwame was saying. Brand is increasingly becoming more and more important. It has always been important, but more so in the noisy world that we all live in today, it becomes even more important to have a very clear articulation and delivery. The way I think about brand is actually very simple. It is a promise to a value that lives in the minds of your customers or consumers. And that's what we are investing in. We believe that we aspire to power the freedom to create online, and all our efforts across our content, our web experience, our customer experience, our sales effort, any point where customer touches us across these different surfaces where we have an opportunity to show up as a brand, we are reimagining all of that. And this is a journey we started late 2022 and we continue to invest in 2023. For example, I just talked about we rebranded, re-architected our entire website, was just to enable it. To give you a case in point, we are blessed to have a variety of different customers choose us to build their web experiences. They are in different journey stages. Some of them are just getting started. Some of them are in very advanced stage. So we have invested in content and bringing that personalized content at the right moment to the customers so that they can drive that value and of the promise that we made to the customers. Huge investment, and we'll continue to do that in 2024. In fact, I'm very excited about the plan that team literally shared with me on Monday of our content strategy, and I'm super excited. And dovetailing that with an LCM, lifecycle marketing effort, is going to be pretty amazing. Second, we are also blessed to have a lot of brands and agencies to partner with WP Engine. Probably one of the arguably biggest network that we have from agency standpoint. And our focus is how do we amplify all those great brand stories and efforts that our agencies and our brands are doing through our web experiences, through our content, through our social media, because at the end of the day, it's a community. We operate in one of the biggest CMS in the world, WordPress, and it's inherent is about community and it's open source. So that's the second area that we are really investing in. I already talked about we are experimenting pretty heavily on AI as well. But one of the key things that we are starting from the get-go is how the new rules and regulations are evolving around ethics as well as the data privacies from the get-go. I have years and years of experience. We have team members who have come in and have seen the transformation when advertising went through this phase. So we're bringing all those learning into how we are approaching this in totality. So a lot to look forward to. And it's actually a build on a strategy that we laid out in the beginning of the year.
Amazing. And we also, just a little plug, we're also amplifying some of the works that your agency partners are doing. So people can look out for that over the next few weeks. Lauren, how about you? What are you preparing for? What are you looking forward for in 2024?
Yeah, I echo a lot of what Sachin and Kwame just mentioned, but I'll focus a little bit on talent. Like we are certainly doubling down on investing in talent. I feel like in 2023 and ahead, we're in an era of like more hyper specialization than we have been in the past. I think, you take a discipline and it breaks down into so many sub disciplines, and you need all of that, smart talent and thinking to bring the best possible results to your clients, because we're living in a world that's more complex than ever. There are more audience segments, there are more channels, there are more formats. There's just so much to think about. So that specialization aspect is really critical. So we're investing in that. We're investing in technology. And I think the talent using the technology in smart ways is what's going to drive that ROI for our clients. So we're really thinking about that. We're thinking about what, we're always thinking about what capabilities we can add to bring more to our clients. So really think about that. And then I think, Kwame, you mentioned, like, we're also, we're focusing on, we are remote, but we're focusing on like in-person moments more and more, either internally or with our clients, going to conferences, getting out there and doing more, even while we're like in this remote first world.
Great. Spending time learning together and being together. Yeah.
Exactly.
I feel remote's been amazing for many things, but it's been, I think, a little bit more challenging for early career talent to get into the industry and to have the mentorship and sort of the learning through osmosis that happened when we were all in person. So trying to recreate those moments and give that opportunity feels important.
Yeah,
I agree.
Totally. Absolutely. Well, let's spend some time talking a little bit about industry trends and where we are today. We've seen a lot of changes here at the Webby Awards over the last few years, and even a lot of changes over the last 28 years. But it feels like to me that things have really rapidly changed over the last few years. Advertising and technology have really moved fast. And there's new ways to reach people. Sachin, you've spent some time talking about personalized experiences for them, and even the ways that we are producing and entertaining our audiences are changing. So Kwame, I'm going to kick off with you. At Kin, what are some of the main trends or themes that you've had to adapt to over the last year or kind of coming up in the future, particularly with the talent you collaborate with and the brands that you work with?
I think a big one has been an openness to bringing in people who maybe don't have a hardcore background in sort of advertising or creative communication. And I think for us, that's twofold. One is it's getting the freshness of the ideas and things that are a bit less expected, I suppose. But also that cultural reference. It's really important for us in the work that we do to ensure that we are connecting to something that's just a little bit bigger than the paid media sort of ecosystem that we live in. So how do we make, creative work that is interesting and that is, to your point, entertaining, and that people actually want to make a part of their world? And that just helps with the traction that we can get, whether that's a platform like Bloom Season, which is, helping diverse entrepreneurs get the actionable insights and the community that they need to successfully grow their businesses. Or, another beautiful project that we worked on was for Delta Airlines around helping with representation, accurate representation in travel content and culture, called Faces of Travel. Like, for us, it's really important to be able to get to that kind of work, and we push hard to ensure that we have teams that fully sort of represent and reflect the community that we're trying to reach. I think another maybe focus of ours that builds a little bit on what Sachin, you shared, is this idea that there needs to be a huge value exchange in what we're providing. It can't be a one-way street, or the work is just not going to resonate, and it's going to be very easy to ignore or sort of move past. So in a lot of what we develop for our clients, we think a lot about how is this connecting to community, how is this building community, how is this meaningfully accelerating a positive outcome for a community, and last but not least, how does this endure? How does this last? It can't just be a firework or a flash in the pan. So we spend a lot of time thinking about that.
Great. Lauren, what are some of the shifts that you've noticed over the year, and what strategies? How have your digital strategies been shifting?
Yeah. I love that you're both talking about these like brand building, community driven, purpose driven initiatives. They're very much on my mind also. I think this year I felt, while that's still very, prevalent and something we're also pushing for, I think a lot of times it's easy for companies to like focus more on lower funnel performance tactics and like forget about fueling their upper funnel. I think especially with like how media is shifting, companies like Amazon and Walmart are causing these shifts in the digital landscape. There's so much hype about lower funnel performance retail media. And I think we're seeing budgets shift in that direction in some cases, but we are, your lower funnel is only as good as your upper funnel. So I think we always push the importance of creating these campaigns and creative that fuels the brand and fuels that connection with their customers. And, of course, keeping performance in mind, it's just really, as always, like thinking about that full funnel. But I think in like today's economy, sometimes there's like so much pressure that it's easy to forget about that. And, I think like Gen Z and people who have more of a Gen Z mentality are going to continue to remind us all that these are important things. This is what, Gen Z wants to know what's behind a brand that they're purchasing. They want to know what they're all about. How did they make their products? What values do they have? What is their mission? What is their purpose? So, I'm super excited to continue doing work with our clients that tell these stories and communicate that while also being able to deliver business results.
Yeah, well, talking about that funnel and conversion around that funnel, Sachin, as regulations on third-party cookies and privacy concerns start rising, what's some new considerations that brands and agencies must have while collecting data in their marketing?
Yeah, for sure. Let me get to that question, but add on to what Lauren said, because I think it resonated. It's important for us to to know marketing is about going to market, i.e. with the environment that we live in. And today, if you look at the macroeconomic environment, the cost of capital is high, if not rising. The demand has been a little bit sluggish. Of course, for the right purpose, right need, there is always a demand. But generally, most of our agencies are engaging with brands, or the brands who are living in the circles that I'm in is a lot about how do you do more with less. The industry has even coined a word, efficient growth, around it. So how do you get to efficient growth? Which, of course, you have to do all the things, whether it is AI or non-AI. You have to automate things, optimize things, and expand things. I always say, if you do anything twice, just automate it. Optimize all the areas that you want to get into. We talk about lower funnel. It's important that when there is a demand, there is a channel to capture that demand. But it is also important to expand so that you're creating demand generation activities as well. So it's automate, optimize, and expand. But there are also other areas that you can get into. Like there is a value proposition for open source is never been higher than today. This is like the perfect time. And the last piece on this is, I think Lauren touched on this, is focus on the brand, focus on the strategic aspect of what you're doing. I feel when more is expected out of less, a lot of people just get into everything. So it is important to have a strategic framework in terms of what do you want to build, what do you want to buy, and what do you want to partner. It's very critical. Like I see sometimes brands just get into everything. For example, site maintenance or site updates. Do you really want to spend time on that, or do you want to really focus time on telling your story, telling what your brand stands for, and how you're adding value to your customers? And that is important. But one advice for everybody: watch out for burnout. It is important to drive efficient growth, and I'm sure businesses are resilient and leaders gravitate towards it, but it's important to look out for that burnout because it's real, and managing that is important. We have put in a lot of efforts around that, but nobody's spared to the burnout. Now back to your questions. It was important, Claire, to just add to that because I want to represent the broader community there. There are a variety of different ways in which companies have to really get into thinking about how do we live and manage in the privacy important world, because it is important. If you look at Gen Zs, they want to talk about trust, and they're okay to exchange their identity or their information for a value. But they want transparency and that trust and responsibility, how you manage it. So how you think about it is like just tactically, A, have a privacy strategy. B, take consent before use. Don't assume automatic consent. If you're asking for cookies, don't enable cookies before taking a consent. Like simple things like, hey, I'm going to assume auto consent now. Take a consent, then cookie. Perform regular audits. It's possible in the busy business that many times we miss doing that audit, and it is often important to go back and do a site audit, maybe every 6 months. Are we managing the cookie properly? Are we taking care of the privacy world properly? Do we have the right privacy policies out there? How is the opt-in, opt-outs managed? Are we encrypting the data coming in and out? It's super important. Are our plugins updated or not? Maybe go for an automated plugins as well, so you don't have to worry about it. To my earlier point about strategic, are we taking regular site maintenance? Are we doing backups of our site? Do we have two-factor authentication enabled or not? Do we have proper firewalls and firewall settings around it? Are we taking care of the DDoS? The list goes on, but it is important to do those regular checks because as much as we would love to build that amazing creative that brings tears in our eyes, mostly of joy or some emotion, it is also important to take care of this in the real world because it's all about digital. We are not doing digital marketing. We are doing marketing in digital era, period. So this is the bread and butter. And then a few things in terms of opportunity, focus on lead management if you're on B2B business side, but demand generation or CRM activity is true for consumer business as well. It's a huge source. And by that, I mean leverage on the first party data. More and more businesses are moving towards adapting first party data because the world of third party data is getting more and more limiting, if you will, or at least not have the same promise of what it had to offer in the past. So first party data becomes super, super critical. And managing and building that with the fair value exchange is phenomenal. I do want to also put a plug on social media. Social has a lot of promises to offer if we focus on that because the world operates around identity-rich world. As long as you respect that identity and add value to the network that you're working on, especially your own channel, there is a lot that you can get into from B2B side, from ABM, account-based marketing. There's a ton of value there as well. And on consumer side, being able to tell your brand story and really engage in and get customers inclined towards your brand. So there are ways around it, but it always starts with having a privacy policy and a privacy strategy, and then regular doing audit and doing right by the customer. This is, as you could tell, this is a topic very close to my heart. But there's some ideas as brands and agencies thinking about this in the new world.
And also super important when we're thinking and as we're talking about trust as well, to get these things right so that you are building a brand that people can trust as well. Yeah, absolutely.
100%.
Yeah. Well, let's move on to one of my favorite topics, new technologies and techniques. At the Webbies, we've watched a lot of developments take place with new technologies, but what we really love, what really fascinates us the most is how people and creative companies use new technologies. So, Lauren, why don't we jump in with you first? How are you all at Kettle thinking about incorporating new technologies like, we've talked a little bit about AI into your work, and how are you integrating these technologies into your builds as well?
Yeah. Right now, I feel like we're in this era of a new era of experimentation. It's obviously provoked by all the AI tools that we have accessible to us, and how, I think this year especially, we've been able to learn a lot, experiment a lot, lean into it. We're working on improving processes from an operational standpoint. We're also trying to use these tools to, fast track creative work and give more time and space to bigger creative and strategic thinking, like let AI take care of easy tasks and low hanging fruit and free up space for our creative thinkers to do more for our businesses that we're working with. So we're incorporating it in, all ways, creatively, in tech, and in our operational efficiencies. And, this sentiment, I'll just like plug for a second, has been very, like the sentiment of experimentation has been very much part of Kettle's DNA from day one. When we started, we were like a product company before product was really a thing. And we've always used like data and insights to fuel our work and bring that, new, surprising, creative fueled by this tech to our clients. So we are, we're doing that every day with AI.
Sounds like fun. Such new technologies like AI, Web3, mixed reality, and everything else are already causing massive shifts in the industry. What does it take to stay ahead of the curve when innovation is constantly changing?
I think there are tons. I already touched about like you got to stay plugged into what the trends are, and for that, like we already talked about, we made an investment to future-proof our web experiences by adopting headless technology. So now anything is pretty much possible, because once you're in that environment where you're taking the power of what WordPress has to offer, which is just unlimited publishing, and but at the same time, the power of JavaScript React framework to show anything that developer wants to show in however which way. But in terms of your question, how do you stay connected? Just read a lot. I mean, read research papers. I'll put them in different buckets. Read research papers. I have my morning newspapers that basically are research paper analysis. I code numbers like nobody's business because it just keeps me grounded in terms of what's happening in the market. Google has tons. CB Research, Gartner produces some really interesting insights around this as well. Tech publications, podcasts, Wired, TechCrunch, Webbies. Just stay connected on that. Join communities. There are some amazing communities on social media and social media group. You can learn a ton from people as you engage with them. There is one program that I introduced more than 10 years ago when I was on the other side, but I have adopted it and now that I'm in the leadership position as well. It's called reverse mentoring. And the way reverse mentoring works is go find a completely fresh talent in your team and ask them to tell you and to coach you about what they are doing, how they're engaging with the digital media. You'll be amazed that 1 hour that you'll spend with them, you'll walk out of that like so insightful, so intelligent that you didn't walk into. And reverse mentoring works like a charm. It's fantastic. Be open-minded, test. I will share one framework because it was in the chat, which was about, hey, we talked about funnel. How do we manage it? This is how we think about it. And this is a framework I've used for like years now in many, many companies, and it has served me well so far. This is how the framework goes. It goes by DETA, which is discover, engage, transact, advocate. Your prospect of customers go through this funnel all the time. And as you're making investment, you have to always ask this question from customer standpoint: which stage they are in, what is their intent? Are they here to discover something more about your product or a new product? Are they here to engage and learn more and use it? Or are they here to transact, which is only one portion? And then what can we do across the board to help them become your advocate? This framework is very simple. And it is, if you just ask that consciously, it will do you a lot. I'm just trying to jump to the question that was there in the chat, but it was an important one to address here because it was from the previous question.
That sounds great. I think we could even send out that framework in our follow-up email so that people can look back to it. And now that you referenced the chat, hi everyone on the chat, we will be taking questions at the end. So all of these great questions in here we can address at the end of our conversation. Thank you. Kwame, how about you? What new technologies and emerging technologies are you all employing, and what's your team using at the moment?
Yeah, I mean, similar to everyone here, we're dabbling in the AI, and I feel there's a lot of excitement about it, and we, like everyone else, are using it and helping us get our ideas to a stronger place in terms of just prototyping or conceptualizing and making real some of the things that live in our minds, but we've shied away from using it in finished work because I feel there's still a lot of questions, honestly, about the ethics and things like ownership. You're having these incredible, incredibly powerful technologies absorbing tons of content from all over the internet, some of which was, developed through some incredibly creative minds, and then, spitting out output, which sort of shortcuts, I guess, a lot of the creative thinking and experience that's gone into developing some of the content that's ingested. So I don't know, I think it's important for us to address those questions. We're never going to stop innovation or evolution. And I think probably like most people here, I don't really have a dystopian view of the future. I think these things are net positive. But we do have to control for and really protect for the worst outcomes. Because I liken it to the advent of social media. I think there was a lot of fanfare and not much thought about how it might be used, maybe in not the way it was intended. So yeah, excited to see, and the recent Biden announcement and a bunch of other things happening to just pay a bit more attention to it. I think it's important for us to lean into that and make sure that we're, setting a strong foundation for how the future evolves.
Yeah, completely agreed. Wary optimism, I'm thinking about it at the moment.
Yeah. Cautious optimism.
Cautious optimism, absolutely. Well, I think this is a great move on to kind of new business cultures and thinking about, working together. We've spent some time talking about that already, but, we're still managing some of the fallout from the pandemic and, bringing people back together again. And Kwame, you spoke really beautifully about community and thinking about community. So with work life kind of settling back into a groove, let's talk about how you all are seeing developments within business culture. And this is one for everyone. What are some of the business challenges you faced this year and how are you tackling them? What learnings have you had over 2024? So Lauren, why don't we start with you?
Sure. I think, just to comment on like the remote first world, like I think it's working very well for a lot of us. I think what we've been trying to do is, again, make sure we have that FaceTime and those in-person moments and, really connect with our clients and our teammates, even in this remote first world. And I think a part of what's worked also well for Kettle internally is that we've spent a lot of time documenting a lot of things about our business and how we work with our clients in the last couple of years, which has allowed us to have like this nice central place for everything and facilitate work faster in a remote world. I also, I think a little bit of a different point, but on the, what we're seeing with business challenges, I think, in a year of efficiency, we are seeing like a lot of need for cost cutting and reducing and showing our value as much as possible. So we're just really focused on more than ever becoming as indispensable as possible to our clients. And one of the ways that we've been successful at doing this is through embedded teams. So even though we're not necessarily in the office together, we still have this mentality of being embedded and working together. And alongside that, I think relationship building is super critical here. Not in a traditional sense, like sending one client services person in to like run a client, but really getting all disciplines and all levels like matched up with folks on the client side and embedding and really becoming like a true partner to them through every facet of the business. And I think it allows us to get smart on how they work and deliver in ways that maybe clients didn't even think an agency could deliver when they were like a little bit more separated. So that's been a part of our brand from the beginning, but I think we're leaning more and more into it in 2023 and beyond.
Yeah, I'll jump in on that, Lauren, only because you said something that really sparked for me. I spent a few years working in-house at a brand, and I credit that a lot to just understanding how creative thinking can impact so many different parts of a brand. It's not just the marketing sort of pie that we've been traditionally focused on. There's so many other areas where the kind of work that we do and the sort of creative thinking we bring to the table can be really impactful. So I think your point about staying close, really understanding the business of the brand in a way, and then using your creative thinking to find opportunities to continue to build and add value, it rings really true. And I think it's a big part of our ethos. I think the other piece is, how do we do not more with less, but less with more impact, and I think it's a little bit of a shift in thinking, but in a climate where you're 100% right, lots of budgets being cut, projects being delayed, not as much investment in different areas. How do we be more focused about what we do and the value we bring?
Mm-hmm.
Deliver that in a way that's really going to drive the outcomes that our clients are focused on, and in our case, the change that we want to make in the world. So those are two really huge things. I just had to jump in and build on them. Yeah,
for sure.
Yeah, I'll add to it. I think just broadly, there is one thing that we always believed in. Like, one of the key pillars for WP Engine has always been customer inspired. It has never been more important than this year and the environment that we lived in. Like, from the beginning of the year, we've been like really heads down across the board. Is customer success is business success, and have a long-term point of view to it. And it's important to keep reminding yourself, as customer success is business success and your success, especially in times like these. But there are basically, as we thought about this year, and our learnings has been largely around 3 areas. And we can talk more as well. But the first one is all about business agility and accountability. Now, it's an easier concept to say, but difficult concept when it comes to change management and providing that, because accountability and agility comes from communication and clarity of communication and prioritization. So as more and more executives are getting in, it's all about prioritization and clarity. I'll give you one example. I've seen the culture in which CEOs and executives do like monthly all hands or quarterly all hands. Our CEO, Heather Bruner, she's fantastic. She's in front of our entire company every week. Every week, she's connected to the company in an open chat forum. Huge takeaways in terms of how do you stay connected and provide clarity. Another key initiative that we have put in, and I think, Lauren, you touched on that, is around connectedness within cross-functional teams. So we have something what we really aspire for is one team, one dream. It's something that has helped me in the past, but never been more important today than ever before. So it really comes down to that culture and process that allows for clarity and accountability for the business. The second pillar is about like really making investment in center of excellence. You have to be good at something and better than anybody else out there. That is strategic. That is a strategic advantage, and that is about investment in talent, hiring, nurturing, retaining, and technologies and tools around it. And I know, Kwame, you talked about, and Lauren, you did too. You have your area in which you really specialize, and that's important for businesses too, for brands as well. And the last one is a real thoughtful consideration on employees' career growth and personal health. And I talked about Heather being in front of the company every week, but more importantly, we have initiatives which are largely focused on that. WP Engine as a company is a remote first, and it has worked out really well. But you have to build tools, processes, community engagement point. Our adoption of Slack and Slack community is, I think, it's pretty amazing, and how teams have come together. But really providing that career path, because when you're spending so much of your time engaging with the customer, engaging with all your colleagues, you want to grow, you want to get something out of that as well. So back to those 3: business agility, business community, accountability, center of excellence, which is all about prioritization and investment, and then career growth for employees and the community just broadly.
Great. I just also want to give another +1 for Heather. She's amazing and one of my faves. We're running out of time, gang. We've had such a fascinating conversation. I'm worried that we're going to miss time for the questions. So I might just jump down to some of our closing questions, and then we can get into answering some of the questions in the chat. All right, closing questions, all panelists, everybody. What are some of the most important elements of work brands and agencies will have to keep top of mind going into 2024? What's some exciting trends or themes to watch out for? Kwame, let's start with you.
Sure. So one that's top of mind for us is how we have a conversation about the work we're doing and the results we're driving, or the outcomes for the business. I think it's really challenging, and we are very intentional about having conversations up front about the KPIs or the OKRs and what the objectives of each assignment we receive is. But I think the challenge is twofold. One is just getting insight and getting the sort of measured sort of outcome of that work, and I think it's probably doubly challenging for us, because when you're thinking about community behavior change or moving some of these big topics in our society, that's often happening over years and decades, and not necessarily weeks and months. So yeah, I think it's top of mind for us, and I think we're starting to think about how to talk about it and how to get a bit more alignment around it in the next couple of years. We're lucky to have some longstanding relationships and a legacy of work that has started to prove its impact in that way. So yeah, I think that's a big one.
Yeah, great. Sachin, let's go over to you, and then Lauren, will close it out with you.
You bet. I think we touched on these topics just across the whole conversations.
Yeah.
Trust in your brand story is like supreme. You have to lead with that, especially in a noisy world that we all live in. It's easy to miss that story. So be clear, be truthful to your story, and trust is important. And build unique, amazing experiences for your customers. Honestly, that's what we have an opportunity. We have such incredible privilege to be able to build and tell our story through a digital medium. And so build unique, amazing experiences that really inspire your customers and your visitors, and that really comes down to understanding the intent, why they are there, and then kind of go from there. But tell your brand story, inspire others through building amazing web experiences would be great as we look forward to 2024. Lauren.
I couldn't agree more. And I think one thing I wanted to talk about a little bit during our time here that I'll piggyback off of what you just said. I think to do that, a lot of what we're seeing people come to ask for, and what I think a lot of brands need to think more and more about, is really like systems thinking. Like, how do you enable teams, whether it's agency or internal, to create great work that lives up to your brand ethos, and every single element you put out there feels right, sounds right, looks right. And we've been seeing a lot of focus on this system level type of work at a multitude of levels, whether it's like at the highest like brand frameworks and strategies, to digital design systems and how to apply that across like such a vast digital world, or even guidelines that drive like very specific channel thinking, because channels are so complex in today's day and age. I think it would benefit brands to really put teams against codifying this, and elevating, codifying, and ultimately rolling out, getting feedback and iterating, because as we all know, brands are alive. They need to be constantly iterated against. So I think that's a body of work that I'm seeing more and more that will help facilitate a lot of these things that we're talking about: great creative campaigns, building trust, building community, etc.
That's so interesting, because once you have that in place, then of course you start adapting and changing in interesting ways as well, right?
Exactly.
Amazing. All right, well, we've got questions. There's lots of questions coming into the chat. So the first one's for you, Kwame. You mentioned that you value creating campaigns that endure and aren't just flash in the pan. How would you advise companies to center this value in the operational strategies when they might have aggressive growth strategies that could compete?
Great question. The simplest way, in our opinion, to attack that is make it accretive to your business. And by that, we mean, how do you align what you are doing, what your actions out in the world, with how you create product or how you grow revenue? Because I think if you're able to do that, then it's almost like a bit of a flywheel. I think a lot of companies approach the work and the purpose and impact space with more of a philanthropic mindset than a commercial mindset. And I think that's why over time we've seen many of them move away from some of these commitments, because they don't really align with how they do business, how they operate, how they make money. So I think if you're able to do the work in a way that it aligns really well, of course, with what you believe and how you view the world, but also how you put products out and how you make money, then it's a force multiplier, and it's very easy to sustain, and it's so positive, in fact, the change that you're driving, not just in your business but in society, that you just keep going. So I think in our minds, that's the best way to do it, and obviously happy to chat more about that. That's what we do every day. But yeah, that would be my reco.
So if people want to chat more about that, hit you up on LinkedIn.
Yeah, go for it.
All right, here's one for everybody. How do you think about agencies moving from creative-driven to AI-driven as a new industry trend in 2024? This can be applied to using AI as a new creative idea, new channel to connect with customers, new efficiency that you gain with automation and LLM, etc. Who wants to take that one?
I can jump in. I think I would just keep in mind that I don't think it's creative driven versus AI driven. Like, it's one and the same. You need creativity to fuel your brand. You need strategy to fuel your brand. We need to tap into AI in smart ways to do that. I think, and I think I said this earlier, but really using AI to fast track creativity and give more room for creativity is where we're going to win. So I don't want to take creativity out of the equation. It's certainly a huge part of it. And yeah, I think we need to keep that in mind as we continue to create for brands.
I'll challenge the, idea that AI will, or AI, is moving. I think it's already here. We're living in it. If you use any mainstream consumer product or web service, it's already built in. So I don't know. I think to me, it's a bit of a fact of our shared reality. And to your point, Lauren, it's more productive as an and conversation versus an or.
Mm-hmm.
Humans with machines, right?
Already here.
All right, we've got one more, I think. Time for one more. In the new era of specialization, what do you think about agency function trend towards specialized function, e.g. creative, media, ad tech, and analytics, or an all-in one agency approach with inclusive service deeply embedded within the brand client? Sanchin, that might be a good one for you to kick off on.
Yeah, happy to. So I think there is a need for both. It depends on who the client is. And it goes back to, you keep strategic and internal, and then you leverage expertise from outside, from your build by partner framework, where it's not an area either for your expertise or your strategic area. Now there are brands who want to focus on really getting into the guts of many things because it's so strategic. For example, I've run e-commerce for years now, for B2B, B2C, C2C, marketplace e-commerce. Just throw all the buzzwords that we throw in, and I could tell you, like, e-commerce would want to control and being able to have a say and keep it internally, advertising and paid media, because that's such a huge line item, it's such a huge strategic part of that company in terms of how they go to market. So there is a lot of in-housing effort that is going on. Now there are companies who operate otherwise too. There's no universal, but generally that's a strategic framework in terms of decision making. But then there are areas that are very important. For example, the creativity that you can get from an agency is phenomenal because you have great talents who are great minds working together in an ecosystem and feeding and living and breathing with each other in terms of that creative exploration, but also are connected to an outside world of what's happening in that space, because it's difficult for brands to invest in every single aspect across the board. And you have a specialized agency that does just that. For example, as we looked into building on our own headless ecosystem, our website, we actually dovetailed into our own ecosystem and partnered with our own agency to help us build that. It is strategic, so we kept it internal, but we leveraged the power of our agency to bring that expertise in headless and what have you from development standpoint. Now, on the other side, there are brands who want to focus more on top of the funnel or broader brand strategy, which drives the overall demand creation. And that's where all in one agency model works just perfect, because they want somebody who takes the broader strategy and brings it to life across all channels. In-housing is amazing. It takes effort, and you have to be thoughtful and choiceful in terms of what you in-house. So I think the answer is both, and there is need for both. There's market growing for both, and I'll let Kwame and Lauren, who are like expert living, breathing this every single day, to comment more. But from brand standpoint, I think there's need for both. I have done both.
Yeah, I mean, I'll echo that. I having worked in-house at a brand sort of agency and also having Kin today, there's definitely a benefit to both. You know, it's not a zero-sum game. And to your point, Sachin, I feel we're in a world now where a lot of work is moving to project-based versus sort of retained established agencies. But even in that project-based world, there's a real value to having a team that knows your brand, that understands the world that you want to live in, but also is steeped in culture and has that sort of creative expertise that you seek, which is not your day-to-day. If you're working at a brand, your day-to-day is making your product or your service. It's not making creativity 24/7. So yeah, having partners you can lean on and trust in that context, I think makes a ton of sense for specific asks.
Yeah, I mean, I couldn't agree with you both more. Kwame, like something you just said resonated. I think, we do a lot of project-based work, but we are still like long-term partners and have that ability to dig deep into a client's business and be that strong partner, that strong innovative thinker that pushes outside of the day-to-day. So just wanted to add that, but agree with what you both said.
Well, as we come to a close, is there anything that we haven't covered that anyone wants to speak to?
There's a question in here about, I think, the 2020 climate, or sorry, 2024 rather, climate. 2020 was a couple years ago.
That was a different climate. That was one we weren't expecting.
Totally different climate. No, but the 2024 climate and what's happening in the world, and I, assume the election in Israel, and there's a lot going on, and has that put pressure on brands and business. I think that's you, Bennett, right? Yeah. I feel there's an awareness that we've felt from some of our clients, especially given, the issues that we focus on and just being in that more purposeful, impactful space. It's very active, and I'm excited because I feel brands have a role and responsibility when it comes to our sort of shared context and humanity, and are often in a much better position to help affect positive change than governments or individuals. But I think the conversation very quickly becomes how, because the last thing you want to be is opportunistic or inauthentic. So I feel it's creeping up in some of our chats, and we're being very thoughtful and deliberate about how we guide our clients on how to navigate that space. But I feel it's got to be on the minds of everyone, honestly, because it's just so key to how we relate to each other and how we relate to the planet. So yeah, I anticipate hopefully that there'll be much more positive, messaging actions that bring us together more than divide us next year. I'm hopeful, but that probably won't be the case.
Yeah, I'm gonna go with I totally agree. I'm gonna go with a little bit more optimism. Like I'm an optimist from the beginning. I would just say, as you look for 2024, be authentic, be tone-tuned. What's going out there? It's a real world we live in. So being tone-tuned is important. Be authentic, make it matter, and make it count. And last one, build some amazing web experiences. Build some amazing experiences. There's nothing better than like just great experiences. Brings joy. So that I would just say those are the last things. But thank you. Great having being here.
Absolutely. Lauren, how about you? Anything to end with?
Yeah, I mean, I think, staying true to yourselves while still bringing that ROI and like showing that value time and time again is going to stay important. But let's do great work. Let's win some Webbies. Let's do it.
Yeah, amazing. Well, that's a great place to end, isn't it? No, I just want to say thank you all so much. This has been an amazing panel. I can't believe that we have been speaking for an hour. It feels like 10 minutes. It's been so interesting. And I'll just do a quick kind of wrap up, a couple of points. Have to remind everyone, win some Webbies. Our submissions are open. We have our final deadline coming up at on the 15th of December. And as we start to wind down the year, a great way to really recognize the work that you've done with your clients and recognize your team is by submitting it for the Webby Awards. We also have new categories for AI and B2B. So if you're interested in any of that, just get in touch with our team and we can help you, guide you along the way. And also I wanted to say, since we've been talking about AI so much, Sachin and I are actually hosting another session in December in and around AI. So stay tuned for more information on that, because I think that's going to be another great chat. But thank you all so much. Have a great day, everyone.
Thank you. Bye, everyone.